She had a really strong sense of color and design, and she liked fabric. She enjoyed fabric. When we traveled, we always ended up in a fabric store. It didn't matter where we were.
The first thing I can remember noticing is how Olive used her hands in handling the fabric and working with the sewing machine.
The other noticeable characteristic was a loss of facility with speech. She was no longer able often to find the word, and she'd struggle to get it out.
In the fall of 2013, she said, "I want to make a quilt. Will you help me?" And, you know, in a heartbeat, "Of course I will, yes." When we did that one quilt, had no idea it was going to lead to 10 projects in 2 years.
Those skills she had with color and fabric and form seemed to be almost entirely unaffected by the disease. Even though she would find it hard to communicate an idea, she could still envision what it was she wanted to have happen with that fabric. It was her doing something that she was good at and continued to be good at, in spite of the fact that she was losing motor control and language. Until this exhibition, I had never seen them together like this. And so it's changed my perception a bit about how I feel about them. This one, it's called Olive's Butterflies, and there's a sense of the butterfly that is a good memory of Olive. I can easily think of her as a butterfly, brightly colored, flitting from this to that, absolutely free. It's sort of become my favorite now.
And that was one of the last quilts that we made together. By the end of our 2 years together, she was most content to just sit by the sewing machine. And I would do the stitching, and she would trim the threads off.
You tend sometimes to forget that inside that brain, there's a fully functional human being. It's just, there are kinds of expression that she can't achieve, and there are kinds of connections she can't make, but some of the things that are fundamental to her character remain undamaged.
And even if she wasn't able to use the sewing machine anymore, she always knew what colors she wanted to use next. And in fact, days before she died, she was pulling out yellows. That was going to be a next project. And as I looked back on that, of course, a few days later, I thought, you know, she was reaching toward sunshine, bright colors. And I just found that very significant.
Mm-hmm.
When she would lay out those last quilts, she didn't any longer know where to put the next piece.
I don't think in the last year that she could complete a sentence at all. She would hang up at some point, and sometimes she couldn't even get started.
She worked very hard, and in fact, something that she said a lot of times was, "I am trying so hard."
Yeah.
And she was. There's grieving going on when you see a person who has been highly skilled, very competent, slowly losing some of those skills.
She didn't lose those essential glimmers of personality that were uniquely hers. So in that sense, she was lucky, I think, with the way the disease treated her.
Mm-hmm. A takeaway message for me from all of this was to see the abilities that a person still has, or the interests that they still have, We went with what she could do.